Disclaimer, the following has been inspired by true life events. Let's take a trip to the uncanny valley and hope that you can make it back unscathed, because this is gonna get creepy fast. Let's start on a lighter note. The Pennywise clown doll. Clowns are spooky enough, but turning a renowned, child-stealing, deliberately terrifying clown from a well-liked horror movie into a doll doesn't exactly make someone feel good. I mean, take another look. This doll doesn't even make an effort to portray Pennywise as anything other than a killer dressed in a horrifyingly threatening clown suit. Let's move on to Slappy. The puppet Slappy is without a doubt the most recognizable figure in the kids' horror show Goosebumps. Every telling of Slappy's tale features a different face form, but they all agree that he is unquestionably frightening. When this puppet awakens, he haunts the person who gave him life and makes them his slave. Slappy's ability to blend the odd body and slack jaw of a dummy with the brains of a serial killer makes him such a compelling enemy for kids. His mean behavior is presented with the kind of dad jokes you would anticipate from a puppet, which makes him so much worse. There's one toy that's more of a trick rather than a treat. Jack in the Box. There may have been a moment in the past when Mattel's Jack in the Box toy was thought to be hip. Right now it's just plain creepy. Whoever thought it was cute to have a clown emerge from a box with a worm-like body? Pop, and there goes the evil. How can this be entertaining to play when horror movies like Krampus are using it to frighten people to death? Imagine the off-key music that comes from these old toys. As if that's not enough, it plays at random, and the suspense can be frightening. Trust me. Whatever they might be, these toys should not be kept on the shelf or in kids' rooms. If you think that was terrifying, then watch out for Furby. Furby, the fuzzy talking robot, was first offered by Tiger Electronics in 1998 and is arguably one of the scariest toys ever made. As the first domestic robot with speech capabilities, Furbies were initially made to learn a new language from its owners. It was a toy you can tell all your bedtime stories, so they initially spoke a silly language called Furbish. As if the Furby couldn't get any creepier, How Cho's very own Zach Levine created Furlexa by fusing Alexa's listening abilities with the horrific form of the Furby. These dolls would come up in the middle of the night, cooing and staring at kids while picking up unusual language and behaving in an unexpected way. Enjoy, if you can, that is. Want to know an inanimate predator? Well, meet Chucky, a doll named My Buddy from real life that was similarly unsettling, served as the basis for the first Child's Play movie. But in the subsequent movies starring Chucky, the killer friend, it became even creepier. Chucky is a cruel predator that delights in making his kills as bloody as possible after being given life by voodoo ritual. As if the horror from the movies wasn't enough, the toy collection of Chucky is terrifying. Why would I want to play with a toy that has blood stains on its face and a knife on its hands? Imagine this toy beside your bed at night, smiling at you in the dark with its knife raised up at you. Oh man, the thought of that just made me shiver. The doll, whose name is Robert. This toy was initially owned by Robert Eugene Otto. He talked to the doll often, and it seemed to have been talking back, but his parents thought it was Eugene talking back in a changed voice until much later. The family also caught a glimpse of the doll running in and out of rooms. On several nights, Eugene would scream. When his parents ran into the room finding furniture everywhere, Eugene would just sit on his bed and say, "Robert did it." Neighbors reported the doll moving from window to window when no one was in the house. The family also heard the doll let out sinister giggles, and guests swore they saw Robert's expression change right in front of their faces. It was easy to assume that they were all paranoid until Eugene died in 1974, and the 10-year-old daughter of the new owners found the doll in the attic. After finding the doll, the girl would scream at night, saying Robert had moved around the room and tried to attack her. More than 30 years later, she told interviewers that the doll was alive and wanted to kill her. Now Robert lives in a museum in Florida, and for people who visit him, you must ask the doll politely if you can take a picture of him. If he doesn't agree, he tips his head to one side. If you take the picture without his permission, then they say that the doll will curse you and your family. I don't know about you, but I am terrified. Next up is the beautiful yet mysterious vintage baby doll. Beba is a red-headed doll with blue eyes from way back in 1976. Like her owner Janice, She's always been a favorite for most doll collectors. When Beba first arrived, the atmosphere changed. Not in a good or bad way. It seems like she brought in mixed emotions. One night Janice was going through her books when she felt a chill run down her spine. She felt someone was watching her. She looked over her shoulder, but no one was there. The only thing there was the closet door, which was slightly open. She just ignored the feeling, but soon after she felt something run past her feet, so she ran into the other room. Another night she would hear doors slamming and giggling. Doors opened and closed on their own, windows fused shut, and keys to rooms would move to different places, just like the horror movies. But that wasn't all. Things soon got worse. Janice then decided to have the house blessed. After the blessing months later, things worsened, and she didn't know what to do. One night she heard a thumping sound from the attic, so she went up the ladder to find where the noise was coming from, but she found nothing. Then she got the feeling that she was being watched again. She felt very uncomfortable and started gasping for air until she closed her eyes and had a dream. Everything went black and she felt like she was falling. She then saw a vision of herself looking at a 6-foot man. He looked really angry and started heading toward an old room in the house. He opened the door and then whispered. The whispers were hard to hear, but they sounded horrible. Then the screaming of a young girl was heard. She was crying and gasping from behind the door. Then it was silent. The door swung open. The man was gone, but the only thing seen was the dead body of a little girl with a grotesque doll with a blue dress and red shoes in her hand. Janice opened her eyes. She was on the ground and could only see the open attic door above her. Out of the corner of her eyes, something moves fast. She turned her head and saw Beba, the doll she had seen in the dream. She buried it in the cemetery, but it was too shallow, and it appeared all dirty on her doorsteps again. She resold it on eBay, and the buyer said it disappeared from her home. And Janice found the doll on her doorsteps again. Starting out, things get even scarier. Keep watching until the end. We know you're spooked already, but wait till you hear about this voodoo doll. A woman in Texas bought a real haunted zombie voodoo doll on eBay in 2004. She later admitted to it being a real big mistake. The doll attacked her many times. She had cuts and bruises and had been gashed open on her leg. After being attacked and knowing the doll was haunted, she left it on display without a second thought. One evening, the woman was in her bedroom reading a book when she heard a tapping noise coming from the downstairs area. She was curious to find out what was causing the noise. She opened the door only to find the voodoo doll on the floor. It continued for several weeks. She could hear a tapping noise and find the doll on the ground. One night, the woman entered her porch room and felt a stinging. She looked down and saw 3 claw marks on her ankle. Every night she was scratched, bitten, and her leg was gashed so deep she had to go to the hospital. She put the doll back in its little coffin and shoved it into the basement, praying it would stay away from her. For weeks, she heard evil laughs and giggles, but she wouldn't dare to open the basement door. The doll couldn't physically attack her anymore, but it began to haunt her in her dreams. She tried to burn the doll, but it didn't work. She tried to cut it up, but the scissors and knife she used broke. The buyer complained that it had disappeared again. So, when the woman found it on her doorstep again, she wrapped it up securely and then sent it back again. After that, the buyer said the box was empty. Then the woman found the doll at her door again. 2 years later, with some help from a priest who told her never to remove it from the box again, the woman finally got rid of the doll. The evil, super creepy, scary, all shades of spooky, frightening, horrifying Annabelle. Honestly, this doll deserves an award for making the heart stop, stay silent for a while, and then suddenly start beating fast. I'll tell you why. In 1970, a loving mother bought an antique Raggedy Ann doll from a store as a present for her precious Princess Donna, who loved the doll and kept it close. A few days later, they noticed something really strange about her present. The doll moved on its own. It was barely noticeable at first, but it became more noticeable as time passed. The doll could also write because Don and Angie found penciled messages on parchment paper, and the writing looked like a small child's. The creepy part about the notes was the way they were written. At the time, Donna didn't have any parchment paper, so where did it come from? Until now, no one can answer that. One night, the doll moved again, and Donna felt something was terribly wrong. She looked over at the doll, which had red stains like blood on its hands and chest. A medium told them a little girl, Annabelle Higgins, died at their house years before they lived there and had put herself in the doll. Donna felt sorry for Annabelle and permitted her to stay in the doll. Still, she eventually found out that the medium was wrong. Annabelle was more than she claimed to be. On a certain night, Lou, Donna's friend who never liked Annabelle, woke from a bad dream. He was still in bed but couldn't move. In a panic, he looked down and saw Annabelle scurry up his leg all the way to his chest, and before he knew it, the doll strangled him. He blacked out. Lou awoke the next morning, knowing it wasn't a dream, and planned to get rid of the spirit in the doll. He quietly made his way to Donna's room, waited for the noise to stop, and then entered. All he saw was Annabelle in the corner of the room. As he advanced, he felt someone behind him, and when he looked, there was nobody there. In a matter of seconds, he clutched his chest in pain. The cut was bleeding. He took off his shirt and saw 7 claw marks on his chest. passed. That was when Donna was finally convinced that it was not a young girl, but a bloodthirsty demon. She called a priest who agreed to help, and Annabelle was then sent to a museum. One day, a visitor decided to challenge Annabelle. 3 hours later, the man was dead. He hit a tree while riding his motorbike and died. No one knows if Annabelle put a curse on this man or if it was just a coincidence. Now, for the moment you've all been waiting for, allow us to present Harold the Horror. Harold was the first doll ever to be sold on eBay. The doll was called Haunted Harold. Many people were viewing the doll. The seller got it from a vendor who claimed the doll brought an eerie presence into his house after his son died. They used to hear crying and singing from his bedroom, and when they checked it out, there was nothing, just the doll. But he didn't believe him. He told him okay, chuckled, and walked away until he got home. 2 days later, his cat died. His girlfriend left him for the pool guy, and he began to have chronic migraines. Then a week later, he started to hear voices of little children laughing and crying in his basement, but every time he checked it, nothing. The doll had over 100,000 views on eBay, and the winning bidder got the doll for $700, but the woman didn't pay. The second bidder got the doll for $300, but sold it to another family because she couldn't handle it. A friend of the seller now owns the doll. She's had some odd things going on after taking the doll. A friend of hers came over to see the doll after she heard about the strange happenings. A month later, her friend developed a brain tumor and died. Before the visit, she was completely healthy. A week later, another friend took a look at the doll. A month later, he fell from a flight of stairs to his death. The woman was in her bedroom one night when she heard noises downstairs. She went to check it out and found Harold sitting in a chair. He looked like he was smiling at her. Whenever her friends and family wouldn't even go near him, so he was locked away in her basement. The doll continues to be sold to different people as no one really wants him. What about you? Would you dare to buy Harold? We hope he didn't freak you out. Enjoyed the video? Now watch this one.